Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, we've arrived at the day at last, October 21st, and you're going to get a feeling that a lot of things weren't right, went wrong. There's a lot of discord and unhappiness on this particular day. There's quite a lot of detail. We're going to quote from certain people, some that you've heard from before, some that you haven't. But the important thing is that we've already established that there were problems prior to this day, that it wasn't just that there was something going wrong on that Thursday, October 21st. There was a lot of things going wrong on many different days. Medics that weren't there, issues with accommodation, the sarcastic T-shirts, all of that sort of thing. And something we established in the previous video was that these T-shirts basically undermining the camera crew and their complaints, those shirts arrived on this morning. And so you can imagine the tensions were literally at breaking point on day 12, on October 21st, on that Thursday. So how the day dawned, how the day started, was the crew members would arrive and they would park their cars near what they called base camp, right? Base camp was sort of where everything was sort of centered, and from there they would then disperse to do their duties. And this base camp area was about half a mile from the security gate, which got you access into the western town proper, right? And so you have catering in that particular situation in that area. And what they were doing after they arrived was they were sort of standing around in the cold. The sun is sort of coming up, it's cold, and they are getting their breakfast, and breakfast is really sandwiches, and they are eating their sandwiches kind of in the dark. And apparently, even the food wasn't that great. According to the LA Times article, quote, the crust on the bread was so hard that it broke off. And but they felt, well, at least there's food. There were some days where they didn't have any food. And so you kind of get this sense that it was quite an austere situation for some people. So some members of the crew probably were enjoying it and having a good time. Others were finding it hard, difficult. And so the camera crew, the camera crew that had been complaining about accommodation, that were feeling overworked, that were feeling stressed and tired, that weren't getting enough sleep, they arrived on day 12, but they skipped breakfast. They knew that they weren't going to be working anymore. They had resigned. They were there, but they were there to gather their gear. They weren't there to work. And so the camera operators went straight to the trucks near the edge of the set. And what they were going to try and do now was sort of sort out their equipment from the production equipment and the equipment of everybody else. And, they were now going to kind of walk off the set, right? And according to the article, they'd kind of been arguing with the film's producers over working conditions for a week, right? So almost half the time that they'd been working, they'd kind of been in a state of discord, disagreement with the producers, and now that reached a breaking point on day 12, on the Thursday, on the day that Helena died. And so that day started with them arriving, skipping breakfast, going straight to get their equipment, and that was it. And obviously they'd sent the emails to the producers asking for a change, asking for some kind of, situation where the producers could meet them halfway, and the producers obviously didn't, certainly not to their satisfaction. And so events really kick off at 6:30 on that Thursday, and we're really going to be dealing with around about 2 hours on Thursday morning before we get to the next episode, 6:30 till about 8:30. And Alec Baldwin would arrive on set closer to 8 o'clock. So he wouldn't be there at this particular point in time. And so I think before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's keep going. There are probably going to be another 2 or 3 episodes in this series. So it's 6:30 a.m. It's Thursday. The camera guys, 6 of them, I guess, have skipped their breakfast, and they are getting into a 10-ton truck that has all the equipment. And they've now got to separate their personal equipment from the stuff that has been rented by the production managers. So you can imagine the production managers sort of hovering nearby, making sure that their stuff isn't taken and that nothing is damaged, kind of thing. And so this process of separating equipment goes on for about an hour, right? It's early, it's cold, it's kind of dark, and it's halfway kind of into the production. And I guess the production folk probably want to be eating breakfast and hanging around with other people, not the people that they're not getting along with. But I guess some of them are there, and they are trying to disassemble monitors and carts and wires and all the relevant equipment. They've probably got to make sure that they're taking the right plugs and all that sort of thing. And at this point in disassembling all of this, the cinematographer, Helena herself, and Dave Halls, the first assistant director, they arrive as well. And so they see this also taking place. So you've got to also remember that Helena and the assistant director are kind of, I won't say they're supervising this, but they are witnesses to this taking place. And so they also had to have noticed what the production folk were saying to these camera people and vice versa. And bear in mind, Helena herself is the sort of main camera person, a cinematographer. And so she arrives, and it's quite interesting, her reaction to this. She arrives there, sees what's going on, and she seems confused that her camera crew are packing up. She doesn't quite understand. She'd been under the impression that everything was resolved, that she'd sorted out the hotel room issue, especially with the, not renting the crane for that particular day. And so she doesn't understand what's going on. And it seems a bit unfortunate that the camera crew didn't keep her in the loop further. It seems a pity that, because perhaps if anyone could have resolved things in an amicable way, maybe Helena could have done that. Maybe she could have found a solution, with diplomacy and, that soft touch kind of thing. And so according to the article in the LA Times, one of the camera technicians said, "We felt bad leaving because of Helena. I was torn. We all really liked her." And so they are leaving. They're not happy with some of the people there, but with the other people, they have relationships and friendships. And it was obviously letting Helena down. Helena was part of the team, or put the other way, they were part of Helena's team, and pretty much the whole team was sort of abandoning ship right at this point. And Helena apparently was quite heartbroken, quite emotional. She was tearful, according to some people. And Lane Lupus said that she gave him a big bear hug and said, "I feel like I'm losing my best friends," right? And I really want to contrast the sort of warm and fuzziness, the sort of fond farewell in a way that is going on with what is going on with the production staff. There's a totally different feeling with them. According to the LA Times, quote, "They were not moving quickly enough for Gabrielle Pickle, the line producer in charge of production. She was the last to join producers, who were standing in a semicircle behind the truck, arms folded, watching the technicians pack up their gear. Sometime around 7:50 a.m., this is just around about the time Baldwin would arrive, Pickle ordered the camera crew to work faster, and that's according to Huerta. She pointed at Lupe and said, "You need to get off the property immediately or I will call security." And that is according to Lane Lupe. So you can just imagine this situation where the producers are standing there, their arms are folded, they perhaps aren't saying very much. They sort of, I won't say so much supervising the disassembly of the equipment, but making sure that none of their stuff is taken and making sure none of their stuff is broken, and also moving them along, making sure that they get off the set kind of as soon as possible. And quite an amazing thing was, because they got off the set so soon, because they didn't eat breakfast, a lot of the crew weren't even aware that they weren't there anymore, right? Some crew members weren't aware that anything had happened. In fact, the exit of the 6 crew members happened kind of quietly and sort of out of sight. And there wasn't kind of a public scene, according to the LA Times. And the only difference that had now happened with them leaving was there was now only 1 camera on the set instead of 2, and I think fewer monitors. And so that would have a bearing on that particular day, in that things were taking longer than expected. More time was being used than expected. And so once again, you have this threat of running behind schedule and all that sort of thing. And obviously the boss is there, the guy who is paid for the production, he's there, and he wants everything to be going smoothly. And so you can imagine in the situation, everyone's trying to be kind of on their toes, not allowing things to fall behind schedule. So I think you can imagine that Thursday being a more nervous day than many of the other days. You've got staff members that have already left, and there's this sense of nervous energy, right? According to the LA Times, quote, "The sun was now up and 4 replacement camera operators, including 3 non-union ones, had been trickling in. At least 2 looked like they were fresh out of school." That's high school, according to Lane Lupe. And at this point, Helena was sort of moved away from this area by the assistant director, and he said, we need to go and prepare for the first shot of the morning. Now, although the first setup of that particular day, Thursday, although it only required 1 camera, the staging was complicated. It involved all of the main cast except for Baldwin, and what it involved was a lot of horses riding together into the old western town, right? So this was going to be quite a difficult thing to shoot. Lots of characters, they had to be in their costumes, they had to be, I guess, armed, right? They had to have their guns in their holsters kind of thing. And you had to have the horses ready, and then it all had to be coordinated, this ride into the old western town. And so in this first scene, which is quite a complicated scene, you already have the setting up taking longer than usual. And this is now already adding to the pressure and the tension on set. And now the time ticks to 8 o'clock. It's around about the time that Alec Baldwin was meant to be his call time, where he would need to be, present. And so everyone is now gathering in the middle of this western town, and they're going to have a safety meeting. And they say that there was nothing different about the safety meeting. There's no different, just totally what anyone would expect. And I don't know whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know whether one can say the safety meeting was just like any other day. I suppose one could construe from that, first of all, it's good that they had a safety meeting, but on the other hand, perhaps the safety meeting needed to have more emphasis. We can't have any more accidental discharges, or guys, make absolutely sure, if necessary, take 5 more minutes or whatever it is. I guess it's easy to say that in hindsight. But nothing stood out in that particular safety meeting. I guess it was just a mere formality. And one does wonder how Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and Sarah Zachary, these really young crew members, how did they respond to did they know that the other crew members had left? Because there were people whispering, did you hear that camera walked? Their sort of jargon for the fact that some of these crew members had left. And so you had some people, little clusters of people, according to the article, standing around heaters in the cold, having coffee and I guess breakfast and talking about it. Did Hannah and Sarah know about this, and did this sort of add to that nervous energy and that need to rush? So I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next episode, we're going to talk about Baldwin's arrival and how the other actors experienced him on the set, and then the prelude to everything happening in the wooden church. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.